so speaking from an African point of view, a platform that I work with, African Stream, was actually mentioned by Secretary Blinken in that press conference. And he just mentioned it very briefly that this platform claims to do so and so and so, but is actually run entirely by RT, Russian propaganda, yada, yada. No attempt to even evidence such a claim. He just sort of threw it out there, knowing very well that the sort of uncritical Western media is basically just going to run with it. And before you know it, it's going to become a fact. And that's kind of how this thing works. The journalists who are involved in this thing don't really tend to think about the second and third order effects of what it is that they're doing. That if we participate in what is essentially the ritual, the public ritual lynching or public ritual murder of other people's work and other people's reputations, simply because a government does not like what so and so said. Why on earth do we not seem to realize that someday, in the not too distant future, it could be our next on the block? And more importantly, why is there even the presumption that because the US government does not like something, somehow in and of itself makes that thing a bad thing? If I were to say that the Nigerian government or the Chinese government or the North Korean government or the Brazilian government doesn't like something, that in and of itself doesn't mean anything. So where does this idea then come from that the US government is somehow the arbiter of all that is good and just? So if the US government doesn't like something, then suddenly, from a journalistic point of view, you are not supposed to like it. Where does that idea come from?
Yes, regards to everyone. Once again, we are back. The subject that we are talking about today is the subject of media. One of our sister platforms, which is an African platform called African Stream, of course, has been censored and has been removed from YouTube. And that is simply because it is broadcasting what is African. If we remember very well, during the colonial era, information was very important. Even today, information is extremely important. But what we have noticed is that what the United States and Europe majorly, what it doesn't like in Africa, it normally terms that as imperialism. In some way, negative imperialism. Of course, I think they think that themselves they are positive imperialism. So they normally term it as subversion. And so what we are seeing today is that there has been the censorship of African Stream, which we all know is a Pan-African platform. Even when you go to, of course, Twitter, it is still there. It has been big on YouTube, and it has been informing the African people of what is going on across the world and what relates to them. And in all what they have been broadcasting, actually, there's nothing completely Russian, because that is what the United States is claiming. The United States is claiming that this platform, which is African Stream, is being financed, or whatever they're doing is being given by RT News of Russia. All right. And of course, these came out after Blinken mentioned these statements a few days ago, 2 days ago, in a press briefing, at the State Department offices. Now, what we are seeing is that we spoke about in the past about a bill which passed in the United States Congress, and that bill was called HR 7311. And in that bill, the United States claimed that it is going to counter Russia's malign activities. And actually, during this period, which is 2022, it was 2022, South Africa under Madame Naledi Pandor, they are the only people who came out to stand against this bill. And of course, unfortunately, on the African continent, for us, no people stand up, for us. That is unfortunate, including our heads of state. They are scared that they cannot even stand up for the interest of our people. And we have had this even, Dr. Shombori Kwao saying, mentioning it, that the African men have let down the African women because they don't want to fight. They don't want to put up a fight. So what we are seeing even today is the same situation, that the African institutions themselves, they don't have protection from imperialism. So whenever we are building up an independent when we are building up an independent institution, imperialism will come and attack that institution, and there's no one to protect it. And of course, this is unfortunate. So while the United States on one side is talking about freedom of the press. When it comes to Africa, they don't want that freedom of press in the African continent, because this platform has basically been talking about what is African, talking about the issues of African Americans, talking about the culture, the African culture, and what is really the interest of Africans. And this is what actually even this platform is doing. And we know that such platforms are being monitored. The African platforms are being monitored. And that's why actually we've been talking to you and telling you that you should follow us on Rumble, because we know that this is an alternative platform where you can find us. And of course, a few of you have come out to follow us. But let us look at what Blinken said. Of course, again, the claim is that this is a Russian platform. The platform is being fed by Russia. All right, is being controlled by RT News. But when you look at the platform, as I said, there's really nothing about RT News. There's nothing about Russian. They are basically broadcasting things which are African. And of course, we don't even need to to defend ourselves, because we have freedom. Besides, what is freedom about? Freedom is about people expressing themselves how they feel like, people reporting and informing their society how they feel like. And what we are seeing, from this is that the US and the Western countries think that Africa belongs to them, is a territory which belongs to them. All right. And therefore, Africans should not think for themselves. This is what they are trying to put out. This is what they are trying to point out, that Africans cannot think for themselves. From the bill which I spoke about, the HR 7311, because that bill was trying to determine sort of like the friends for Africa. Who should be the friends? Africa cannot have its own friends. Africa cannot go out and have friendship with Russia. Africa cannot go out there and have friendship with China. So they have to pass a bill in the United States Congress and make it look like Africans are subject to the United States law. So this is what they are trying to say, that the United States has to decide for Africans who are its friends. So in this bill, they are saying that they will come to Africa and counter Russia maligning activities, what they call maligning activities. So in this, they mean that they look at us as second-class citizens of the world. Africans cannot think for themselves. Africans cannot see that the US and its partners have been exploiting the Africans for a very long time. Africans cannot see that these are the people who enslaved us, and they have been killing our leaders, the good leaders on the African continent, and installing the bad leaders on the African continent. So this is basically what the United States and the West are trying to do with all these activities. So from the bill of malign activities to now closing RT News, actually, RT News itself was blacklisted on the African continent. How? MultiChoice, a platform which is based in South Africa, we know that it is owned by whites, all right? And RT News was blacklisted from broadcasting on the African continent in itself. So United States now wants to treat us as Africans, as children, right? They want to treat us as children. We don't think. Africans don't think. And therefore, every time Africans are trying to think for themselves, or to try to think about how to liberate themselves, then it is Russians who are telling them. And of course, this tendency and this approach, of course, we have to resist it. We basically have to resist this approach. We have to resist this imperialism. We have to resist this patronizing by the United States and the direction, of course, it is taking together with its Western allies, because they think that the continent belongs to them, and therefore they can continue to impose puppet leaders on the African continent without the African people, fighting back, without African people saying anything, without African people, them building, without us African people building our own institutions. This is the message, clearly, what the United States, is trying to push across. But let us go to Senator Blinken, or Secretary Blinken, to listen to what he was saying during this, this press conference, where he mentioned African Stream. Actually, African Stream is a very small media platform. It's not like BBC. It's not like CNN. It's not like Bloomberg, which have been spreading huge misinformation across the world. These platforms, they were not banned from YouTube. They have not been banned from anywhere. Even though these platforms spread false information about Iraq, They spread false information about Libya. They have been spreading false information even about Ukraine, these platforms. But what African Stream is doing, what it has been doing is basically to inform Africans what is happening across the world, what is happening in Ukraine, the double standards of the West, the problems in Palestine. This is what African Stream has been doing. And of course, it is very unfortunate, like I said, that many of the African platforms, have not come out to defend. Many of the African platforms, of course, have not come out to defend African Stream. And all over the continent, we are not seeing them come out. Why? Because we know that the mainstream platforms on the African continent, all of them, majority of them, or all of them, belong to the imperialists. And that's why they are not coming out to defend the African Stream. So we Africans on the periphery, who have been pushed to the periphery, we have now to come out and defend media freedom. Unfortunately, that the African mainstream, the mainstream African media is not even defending Africa's, rights to media. Their media own rights, their journalistics, rights. So this is what we are seeing. So now we on the peripheries, the alternative media platforms on the periphery, we are the ones who are now defending the journalists, the African media rights on this, all across the globe. So of course, this is in itself very unfortunate. But let us listen to, to Secretary Blinken and the lies that he's spreading and claiming that, they are countering misinformation. And the only platforms, like I said, which we know that have been spreading misinformation across the world, of course, it is the BBCs, the Bloomberg, is these platforms, BBC, CNN, all these Sky News. They have been spreading misinformation, of course, starting with the Iraq war. But they have never been banned by Secretary Blinken. They have never been banned by the United States government. And they are banning African Stream without even producing a single evidence that this African platform, is spreading misinformation. And of course, this is where it is becoming even problematic. It is very problematic, for the African now. It is becoming very difficult for the African even to defend himself. It is becoming difficult for the African to defend his economic interests. It is becoming difficult for the African to defend his political rights without the interference of the United States. Now, it is becoming difficult for the African to defend even his own media rights. The United States feels like it should have control of Africa's minds. Okay, they want to put the African continent in the same position in which they have put, Africa's brothers, the African people's brothers, who is the African Americans in the United States, whereby they bombard them with a lot of lies. They bombard them with, unceasing, relentless, censored stuff, which are lies, complete lies. So this is what they are trying to do even on the African continent, that they are trying to bombard now Africa with a lot of lies, which they have concocted from the United States, in Washington, Brussels, okay, in London, in Paris. That is what they are trying to do. And we have to understand, we as Africans, that the media is extremely important, because the purpose of the media is to control the mind. And that is why we have been asking you, support Connect Africa, support these platforms, support the alternative African platforms. Go out there and share it, because we do not have a lot. We Africans, we do not have a lot. And we know that these African platforms, these media platforms, these African platforms are being monitored. They are being censored. All right, even on YouTube, that their algorithm is not being allowed to go far. They are not being allowed to grow. They are being monitored and censored. They are being controlled in one way or the other. So it is very important that when you see something that has been broadcast on this platform, come out and share it. Come and support the platform, because it is the only way we can send this information to our people. Because as you are seeing, they are blocking the information from going to our people, from reaching out to our people. And of course, which is very unfortunate. So let us listen to the Senator Blinken, Secretary Blinken, and his lies that he's pumping out regarding misinformation.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. And for those of you who are traveling, welcome home. Accurate information is vital to the health of any democracy. It helps citizens understand the issues and effects and events that are affecting their lives. It empowers them to engage meaningfully in their communities, their country, the world. When state or non-state actors spread disinformation, material deliberately meant to deceive or divide our public, they attack the very foundations of our free and open society. In March, I laid out the comprehensive steps the administration is taking to address this threat to our national security and to our national fabric. First, we're building a more resilient global information system where objective facts are elevated and deceptive messages gain less traction. We're doing that by promoting policies and programs that protect a free, vibrant, and independent press, and that foster greater civic and media literacy so that people can better distinguish fact from fiction, gain less traction. We're doing that by promoting policies and programs that protect facts are elevated and national security and to our national fabric. In March, I laid out the comprehensive steps the administration is taking to address this threat to our national security and to our national fabric. First, we're building a more resilient global information system.
So I want you to listen very carefully to what Blinken is saying. Secretary Blinken is saying that they are building a more resilient global information system where objective facts are elevated. Now, there's a video, our audience, I think you need to pay very close attention. We published a video on artificial intelligence, and that video was not paid attention to. And African people, we the African people, and of course, when I say African people, I mean those on the continent and those in the diaspora. Whatever it is, you can call yourself African Americans, but whatever it is, you came from Africa, right? We think that you are African people. You can be from Jamaica, you can be from wherever you are. As long as you are black, your roots are in Africa and you are an African, all right? These people who call themselves Americans, these are Europeans. These are Europeans, and that has to be made very clear. Let us be very clear on this. Whether they are in Australia, whether they are in Canada, these are Europeans, all right? So if they are Europeans and they know that they are Europeans, they are identifying themselves as Europeans, and they create groups. We know that they create groups. They have NATO, where they belong, all of them. Why do you think they have this? They have this because they understand that they are Europeans. They do understand this. That is why you see NATO, Canada is there, is existent. The United States is the one who's leading. The European countries, all of them, the Western European countries, all of them are part of NATO. Australia is part of NATO. Why do you think they are doing this? It's because these people understand where they come from. Now, we have a problem as Africans, and we need to rectify this problem clearly and very well and quickly if we want to survive in the next generations as Africans. We belong together as Africans. Whether you are African American, you have to understand that you belong to the African continent. Now, we have a problem as Africans that some of the information we want to be choosy and even question the people who are leading us to liberation. We have a problem. We have this problem that when we broadcast information, some of the people, they don't even click it. They don't even look at it. They say, oh, me, I don't want those things of artificial intelligence. All right. This is what Africans we are doing. All right. We published a video on artificial intelligence. We have published videos on Ukraine. We have published videos, whatever it is, whatever subject you see on the global stage, it concerns you as an African, and you need to pay attention to it. We have spoken about the United States, and when we were talking about the United States politics, some of the Africans have said, we don't need, you just talk about Africa. That's not how things work, really, guys. That's not how things work right now, because we are in the global village. So you are supposed to pay to every little detail that is going on across the world, even if it is going on in China, deep down in the village in China, because it affects you as an African. And we have to pay close attention to this. Now, let us listen to what Secretary Blinken is saying. First, this is laying out the purpose of him coming to censor African platforms. Because to be honest, we Africans do not have a lot of platforms that are speaking for us. We do not have them. As Africans, we do not have platforms that are speaking on our behalf. We don't have media platforms that are speaking on our behalf and putting out our narrative. It's very few of them, and we need to protect them. We need to support them. We need to support them. even those on the African continent, those platforms existent on the African continent, are not supporting the Africans. They are pumping out European football. Now, what is the European football going to be useful to for the African people and their liberation? And of course, this is what Buju Banton was talking about, even in music, because Buju Banton was complaining about music, African music, and saying that what are these people singing about? Why not sing about liberation of the African continent? All right. Why not sing about the liberation of the people, like what Fela Kuti used to sing about, like what Lucky Dube used to sing about? These are the questions which the people are asking, who are sensible, right? So we do not have enough of those media platforms. So what does this mean? It means that the media platforms which we have, we need to pay attention and support them, and the information which is brought, we need to consume it. We need to consume that information. We published a video on artificial intelligence, and the reason we published that video is to show you how artificial intelligence is going to be used. Why do you think the United States is contending with China on artificial intelligence and technology? Now, if we bring you a video to explain to you what is in technology, don't say we want things about Africa. Technology is part of that. The global supremacy, the war for the world, the supremacy of the world, the war for the supremacy of the world is won because people have technology, and they are fighting it because they want to control technology. Now, listen to what Secretary Blinken is saying. He's saying that we are building a more resilient global information system. We have been hearing this for a long time. We have been hearing artificial intelligence. And in the video which I published, and Connect Africa here, we published Connect Africa and Africa Reimagined, the video which we published on artificial intelligence, we explained to you how artificial intelligence is going to be used globally, how it is going to be used. And I painfully endeavored to explain in that video. That video has not got instruction. Of course, it is unfortunate, and we need to go back and watch that video. The video has not got instruction. Now, what I'm trying to explain about artificial intelligence is that artificial intelligence is going to be used to censor Africans. The information which they don't want to come to Africa is not going to come. That is what is going to happen. The information the West does not want to come to Africa is not going to come. If they don't want it in Africa, the information, it will not come to Africa. And that is what it is. That is what is going to happen to us. And we are seeing, even starting now, that platforms like African Stream, they have been removed from YouTube. If you go and search for it, it is not there. The next time we will see, they will remove it from Twitter. Of course, it is still there on Twitter. And that's why we need backup platforms. That's why we asked you, go and subscribe to Connect Africa on Rambo. Go out there. If you don't have a Rambo account, open a Rambo account and subscribe to the platform there. Because that is what they are trying to do. Now, this is what they're going to do with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is just a model, is a computer model that can be programmed. And what they are going to do is that they will inject it, a model in YouTube. And any channel which speaks about, for example, imperialism will be banned. And artificial intelligence will block it. This is basically what they're going to do. I've had an experience with artificial intelligence, both Gemini, if you're talking about a Copilot from Microsoft, and I've had, ChatGPT. When you ask ChatGPT, when you ask Gemini from Google, when you ask Copilot from Microsoft, when you ask all these platforms anything about Africa, what do they bring? They bring antiquated, they bring biased, all right? They bring biased information. If you're talking about, for example, Nkrumah, artificial intelligence will tell you that Nkrumah was a dictator. That is basically what it will do. If you talk about Africa, they will bring bad things about Africa. That's what artificial intelligence does. Why? Because it was programmed by people. And artificial intelligence is not going to benefit people who are not already in the technology, who don't have the basic infrastructure. We all know that Africa doesn't have the basic infrastructure for artificial intelligence. We don't have it. Our data on the African continent right now is being harvested and taken to the West for the West's consumption, for controlling us. And so we have seen this. So Blinken, what he's saying, we are building a more resilient global information system. That is basically what he's talking about. He's talking about artificial intelligence, because news in the future is going to be controlled by artificial intelligence. So there will be selected information that will be allowed to appear in certain areas. And even today, we see it even on YouTube, that when you are in Africa, there's certain videos which you click on YouTube and they will be blocked. They will not allow them. And they will tell you that because of your location, this information, you are not allowed to watch this information. So this is what artificial intelligence is going to do. This is what it is doing. And even they have been doing this for a very long time. That certain information, certain videos, if you are in Africa, if the system reads your IP address and sees that you are in Africa or you are anywhere where they don't want you to watch this information, it is blocked. You can't have access to it. So that is basically what Blinken is saying, that we are building a more resilient global information system. All right? Because they are seeing that the rest of the world now is catching up with them. We are competing. We are coming out there to compete with them as Africans and the rest of the world. How do you think China has caught up with them? Because we are all now consuming the same information. Information has sort of been democratized across the world. Across the world, information has been democratized. All right? So if information has been democratized, it means these people cannot claim anymore that they are smart, that they are intelligent. They cannot, because we are going to match them boot for boot. All right? We are going to match them because we have the same information, because we are consuming the same information. That means that the lies now cannot be propagated, cannot be put out there anymore. This is basically what it means. Now, if the lies cannot be put out anymore, then they are going to face problems. They are going to face a lot of resistance. If you remember in 1945, the reason why our countries got independence is basically because a lot of Africans were educated, became educated. A lot of African Americans became educated, and they went and fought in the World War II. And when they came back, they saw that these people, they are the same intelligence with us. Why are they colonizing us? Why are they, imposing, for example, segregation on us? Why are they, Jim Crow segregation? Why are they imposing it on us? So that's how Africans started fighting. Why? Because they understood. They became enlightened. For example, in the colonies in Africa, for example, they were educated. They became educated. They were educated in the mission schools. And they saw that we have the same intelligence. We can do what these guys can do. How come these guys are colonizing us? We need to chase them away. So this is basically what they are reacting to. And of course, it doesn't mean that if they do this, they're going to win it, because information has already gone out there. Information has already gone out there, and we have consumed it, and there's no turning back. So now they are just fighting a lost war. That is basically what they are doing, that they want to control, that's why they are financing all these, artificial intelligence and all that, so that they can have control over this information and filter out what information Africans can consume, so that Africans cannot rebel, or the rest of the global south should not rebel. Why? Because these societies, these capitalist states, these Western states, they are parasites who are feeding. They are like a parasite which is feeding onto the poor countries of the global south. They are feeding on us. And if we rebel, then they are going to starve. Of course, this is the fear. So the best way to do that, for them not to rebel, of course, they have taken over our political system a long time ago, impose now control over information, because they are seeing, what they are seeing now is that their puppets on the African continent are in trouble. That is what they are seeing. So they need to protect their puppets on the African continent from these media platforms. Of course, we know African Stream was based in Nairobi. And if it comes out and speaks against Ruto, people will continue to rebel against Ruto. So we see that these tactics are being used to silence the African voice and to prevent the African voice from consuming their information of choice. Because if you're talking about the freedom of media, everyone should choose. Everyone should choose their freedom, should have their own freedom to choose the information which they consume. Regardless of who is broadcasting, we should be able to choose. It should not be the United States to choose for us the information that we are going to consume as Africans. It should not be so. The information, whether it is RT News, whether it is from China, whether it is from Russia, everyone should be able to consume information, and then they should form their own decision and say, this is the lie, this is not the lie. Because according to them, according to the West, human beings are rational. And that is why they give them votes. Other than that, we should not be giving votes to everyone. We should first educate people how to vote. But we don't do this. So then, if you are giving people to go and vote, So why are you now trying to censor the media which they consume and claim that you are trying to separate lies from truth? And who are you? Of course, this is the question. Who are you who thinks that you know what the truth is and what the lie is? You see, so this is the problem that now the African continent is facing, that we have an attack by imperialists, and then we have an attack by the puppets on the African continent themselves. And these puppets, they cannot protect the genuine African institutions. And of course, this extends all the way everywhere to where, everywhere Africans are, including the United States, that the institutions which are supposed to, protect the interests of the African people in the United States, or whatever you can call them, the African Americans, they are not protected. There is always a way of the whites taking over these institutions and controlling them, whether it is BET, whether it is whatever it is, all these black media platforms, they will take over so that the black people do not have any voice, do not have any source of information. And I think that Dr. Cloud Anderson has also spoken about this, in the past, the fact that blacks don't have information systems in the United States. They get all their information from the white media. And that is what the United States is trying to implement in Africa. And that is what it did by banning RT news from the African continent. It is the United States, it's the West which did that. So what it has done to the Africans in the United States is the same thing that it wants to do on the African continent. That is what it wants to do on the African continent. Of course, which is unfortunate. Of course, it has been doing this for a very long time. But let us continue to listen to Senator Blinken's lies and what he's saying.
Where objective facts are elevated and deceptive messages gain less traction. We're doing that by promoting policies and programs that protect a free, vibrant, and independent press, and that foster greater civic and media literacy so that people can better distinguish fact from fiction.
So that is it. That is basically it that we are saying. He is saying that they are purposely doing it. They are promoting these policies. They are promoting the policies of filtering information and to promote what they are calling the truth, what they are calling objective facts, and separating it from lies. So who is the government now to choose for people what they think? And who is the United States for that matter? Because we are not subject to the Constitution of the United States as Africans. Who is the United States now to choose for us what to do on the African continent? If the United States wants to, they should censor African stream or African media platforms in the United States, not to come to Africa to censor them in Africa. Censor African stream YouTube platform in the United States so that it does not come to the United States. Leave it for the Africans. Leave it for the Africans. But why do you ban it? This is an African-only platform. Why do you ban it? So these are the questions. These are the critical questions then we need to ask. Then this informs us. If you can't do this, then this informs us of your intention, that your intentions are basically imperialist. They are colonialist. Your intentions as the United States, as Blinken, they are basically colonialists. You are trying to colonize the African people to tell them what to think. And yet you are not any smarter than them. Blinken is not any smarter than any other African, which you can, any African who you can go and pick on the street. So where then do you get the right to tell the Africans what to watch and what not to watch? And these are the questions. These are the critical questions. These are the very critical questions that we should be asking as Africans.
Second, we're working to expose, to disrupt, to deter disinformation. Through the State Department Global Engagement Center, we're coordinating government-wide and with other countries to identify, to analyze, to undercover attempts by governments and non-state actors to manipulate information. Third, we're taking steps to hold accountable those who weaponize disinformation to undermine our democracy. That's what we did just last week when the State Department, the Justice Department, the Treasury Department, the FBI took a series of coordinated actions to counter Russian influence and interference in our elections and in our democracy. In addition to imposing sanctions, visa restrictions, and other measures, the State Department also designated the Russian state-funded and directed media company, Rossiya Segodnya, and 5 of its subsidiaries, including RT, under the Foreign Missions Act. As a result, these actors are now required to notify the State Department of all personnel working in the United States, as well as their property. We took these steps based on our conclusion that Rossiya Segodnya and these 5 subsidiaries are no longer merely fire hoses of Russian government propaganda and disinformation. They are engaged in covert influence activities aimed at undermining American elections and democracies, functioning like a de facto arm of Russia's intelligence apparatus. Today, we're announcing that these Kremlin-backed media outlets are not only playing this covert influence role to undermine democracy in the United States, but also to meddle in the sovereign affairs of countries around the world. Thanks to new information, much of which originates from RT employees, we know that RT possessed cyber capabilities and engaged in covert information and influence operations and military procurement. As part of RT's expanded capabilities, the Russian government embedded within RT a unit with cyber operational capabilities and ties to Russian intelligence. RT's leadership had direct, witting knowledge of this enterprise. Russian government actors incorporated the cyber capabilities of this unit within RT in the spring of 2023, which is focused primarily on covert influence operations around the world. Under the cover of RT, information produced through this unit flows to Russian intelligence services, Russian media outlets, Russian mercenary groups, and other state and proxy arms of the Russian government. One of its projects is a large online crowdfunding program in Russia, operating within RT and through social media channels to provide support and military equipment, supplies, weaponry to Russian military units in Ukraine. This includes sniper rifles, suppressors, body armor, night vision equipment, drones, radio equipment, personal weapon sights, diesel generators. While the crowdfunding campaign is out in the open, what's hidden is that this program is administered by the leaders of RT. Last week, our government revealed how RT launders information operations through unwitting Americans to covertly disseminate Kremlin-produced content and messaging to the American public. Today, we're exposing how Russia deploys similar tactics around the world. In Germany, for example, RT covertly runs the Berlin-based English language platform Red, a successor to the now defunct RT-linked platform Redfish. RT also secretly runs the online platform African Stream across a wide range of social media platforms. Now, according to the outlet's website, African Stream is, and I quote, a Pan-African digital media organization based exclusively on social media platforms, focusing on giving a voice to all Africans both at home and abroad. In reality, the only voice it gives is to Kremlin propagandists. RT's expanded covert capabilities allow it to deepen coordination with traditional Russian intelligence services as they work to manipulate the outcome of.
Now, there's something which we need to understand here as Africans, once again, that when you read the book called White Malice, and if I had the chance, I would share that book, but I know that some of you have read that book. I think it was written by a lady called Williams. The book is called White Malice, How the CIA, reconquered the African continent. One of the things that Nkrumah was accused of was the fact that Nkrumah, of course, was making the Africans politically conscious. And they said that Nkrumah had a media platform. He had started a media platform in Ghana, and that media platform was broadcasting all across the African continent. So they accused Nkrumah of being a communist. And of course, that is what they did. And that is how they overthrew Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. But basically, because Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was informing the Africans about what is happening in the 60s. Now, when we come to Patrice Lumumba, the reason why he was killed also, they first ran the propaganda campaign that Patrice Lumumba was a communist, and therefore he was being supported by the Soviet Union, which is today Russia. And what we are seeing today is that they are doing the same thing. They are using the same tactics. But the only way these people can succeed if we, the Africans, sit on the side and wait. and think that there's somebody who's going to come and save us as Africans. But there's no one who's going to come and save us as Africans. We have to fight this out. We have to shut this propaganda out. We have to oppose this propaganda that Blinken and his group are spreading, the imperialists, because basically what they want is to colonize and to exploit. That's basically what Blinken represents. Blinken represents nothing else apart from colonialism and exploitation. And the United States government, the whole of it, what it represents is basically exploitation and operation. That is basically what it does. And this is what they don't want to hear. And they think that the African people are so stupid that they will not understand that the United States is for colonization, is for imperialism, is for exploitation. And this is the propaganda, of course, they spread against, China across the African continent. The assumption is still ripe, prevalent within the Western psyche that the Africans are stupid. They don't understand. They cannot separate facts from fiction. The United States has not contributed anything to the African continent apart from exploitation, from slavery to resources. The uranium which was used in creating the bomb which was dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima was taken from the Democratic Republic of Congo. The United States is on the African continent to continue the exploitation. Recently, copper was taken from Democratic Republic of Congo and taken to Baltimore. The first shipment of copper was taken to Baltimore using the radar platform, which the United States has claimed that they are investing in Africa. But we know they are not investing anything. They are using this radar platform and rehabilitating it to take Africa's resources. But in the mainstream media, the US is claiming that it has come back to counter China in Africa, and therefore it is investing in Africa about $500 million. But when you ask where is the $500 million that you are investing, where is it? Show us where it is. You don't see it. They claim that they are investing, they are giving Africa in aid, $9 billion for PEPFAR every year. When you ask where is the money going, you don't see it. Show us where you have built. When you ask the Chinese, where's the money you are giving? They show you the roads. They show you the stadiums. They show you the railway platforms. They show you the infrastructure which they have built for the African continent. So this thinking that the Africans are stupid and therefore they need to be thought for by the white man, I think this is what we need to come out there, in broad daylight, before the world and oppose. We have to oppose these lies. We have to oppose these lies, absolutely. Okay, so I want you to like the video. Go out there and like the video, please. You are 100 people. Like the video before we continue to go on to get, the gist of all this. Please give us 100 likes so that the video can be recommended to other people. Kindly do that for us. And also share the video because this is very important. A platform which has been closed is an African platform, and we need to put it out there, in the minds of all Africans. The information, all Africans have to be informed because this is a major information platform for the African people, and these imperialists are breaking it down. Now, what we have to understand is that Nkrumah was accused of the same thing when he removed. Perhaps you remember before he was killed, he was accused for the same thing. All the African heads who were removed, like Sekou Touré on the African continent, they were accused of the same thing. All right? So they were accused of the same thing. The claim was that they are communists. And this is what we are seeing the United States is doing even today to African Stream. They are claiming that this platform belongs to Russia because they don't like Russia. Therefore, Africans are supposed to be puppets. They are not also supposed to like Russia. They are supposed to follow the United States and not like Russia. And this, we are not supposed to accept this. This is not acceptable. And this is simply because we can think for ourselves as Africans. We have a right as Africans to think for ourselves, and the United States has no right. The United States and all its institutions, whether they are NGOs, whatever they are, they have no right to come to the African continent and impose anything, any thought, any dot of a thought, any drop of a thought. The United States has no right to come to Africa and think for us. And we have to make this very clear, extremely clear, that Africans can think for ourselves. And why can we do this? Because the United States does not have smarter people than us. It's not that they are more intelligent than us. This information has to be put out there clearly for them to understand that as Africans, we can think for ourselves. Okay, so These Africans all over the world, we have to understand it, that this tactic has been used before in discrediting some of the best people we have on the African continent. Now, some of the best institutions which had been built, Nkrumah had built some of the best institutions which were going to liberate the Africans, whether it was the media, whether it was the Black Star shipping line on the African continent, whether it was what the nuclear projects Nkrumah was building. All these were destroyed by this claim, by the US using this claim that they are communists, they are working with communists. And this is the same tactics that Blinken is using and the United States government is using. Of course, I will not only sing out Blinken, because Blinken is just a servant of a system. What we are fighting against here is not merely Blinken or George Biden, or Joe Biden, or whatever it's Kamala Harris or it is Donald Trump. These are the same. We are fighting against a system. It is a system that is holding Africa back. When you go all the way to Dangote, all the challenges Dangote is facing, it is this system, it's this Western system that is holding the African continent back. This is the reason why Africa has not been able to progress and move forward, because our thoughts have not been implemented. The thoughts of our forefathers and foremothers, whether it is Amy Ashwood Garvey, whether it's Marcus Garvey, whether it is Malcolm X, these thoughts, what they had, the thoughts they had for the continent, whether it is Nkrumah, whether it is Robert Sobukwe, the thoughts, the continent they wanted to see, whether it is whoever it is, the Africans, the thoughts which they had and how they wanted to see the African continent, that is not the African, the Africa that we are seeing today. Why? Because the West took over the continent in 1966 and started molding the continent in their own thoughts. And this is simply why we have not been able to develop and to move forward. And this template is being used again and again. Control the information, control their economy, control their politics. This template is being employed again and again and again. All right. So this is what we have to be aware of as Africans.
Democratic elections in the United States, but also around the world. For years, RT and its employees have coordinated directly with the Kremlin to support Russian government efforts to influence Moldova's elections, including the October 2024 presidential election. RT's leadership has leveraged Russian state-funded and directed media platforms to attempt to foment unrest in Moldova, likely with the aim of causing protests to turn violent. We believe RT will almost certainly leverage its expanded covert capabilities to coordinate with Russian intelligence services to try to manipulate the outcome of Moldova's upcoming election. As a result of these findings, today, we're imposing sanctions on 3 entities and 2 individuals for Russia's covert global influence operations, including interference in Moldova's democracy and its upcoming elections. The actions we're exposing today and the actions we exposed last week do not incorporate the full scope of Russia's efforts to undermine democracy. The actions and 2 individuals for Russia's covert global influence services to try to manipulate the outcome of Moldova's upcoming election. As a result of these findings, today, we're imposing sanctions on 3 entities and 2 individuals for Russia's covert global influence operations, including interference in Moldova's democracy and its upcoming elections. The actions we're exposing today and the actions we exposed last week do not incorporate the full scope of Russia's efforts to undermine democracies. Far from it. Russian weaponization disinformation to subvert and polarize free and open societies extends to every part of the world. In response, today, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada are launching a joint diplomatic campaign to rally allies and partners around the world to join us in addressing the threat posed by RT and other machinery of Russian disinformation and covert influence.
Now, this is what I wanted to speak to Africans about. So when you look at Blinken, of course, we all know that he is lying. And of course, you are seeing what he's saying, that we believe, the statement he used, we believe. He did not say we found the facts. We have the facts that RT is spreading the information, the misinformation. He's saying we believe. They have not produced any facts to show that there's misinformation that is being spread anywhere. That is number 1. Now, number 2, look at the allies he's talking about. He's talking about his allies, the United States and the United Kingdom and Canada, they are going to work together to combat this so-called misinformation, which we are not seeing anywhere, apart from them censoring the information. And what does this tell you? It tells you that what I've been saying is true. These people, they see themselves as one. Okay, whether they came from Europe, as they know they came from Europe, whether they are in Canada, whether they are in the US, whether they are in Australia, they see themselves as one. And so it is time for Africans, specifically we Africans, those in the diaspora, whether you are calling yourself African Americans, like I said, you can call yourself fundamentally Black Americans, you can call themselves whatever it is, Edos, African descendants of slaves, whatever it is, you have to understand that what you are up against, you cannot win if you are trying to divide yourself in these portions, whatever it is, whether it is being led by the CIA and the FBI, is whether it is the one instigating this, it is extremely dangerous. And the other thing which we see is that for a very long time, imperialism and the United States has seen Pan-Africanism as a threat. And we saw this, even Macron was talking about it. Macron mentioned that the so-called Pan-Africanists, they are the ones who have led to the hating of France in the Sahel. So what we are seeing Blinken also mentioning, actually at the beginning of his remarks, what Blinken mentioned is that African Stream claims that it is a Pan-African platform for giving a voice to the Africans on the continent and those in the diaspora. What is he basically saying? He's basically saying that they are seeing the coming together of Africans in the diaspora and on the continent. That's what he's basically saying. And they don't like it. These media platforms are trying to bring people together. And we don't like it. They're trying to bring the African Americans together with the Africans. And this is not something we like. We don't like this. We have to stop them. Whatever small contribution it is making, we have to stop them. This is basically what it is mean. This is basically what it means. So then this brings to the understanding that we as Africans, and whatever it is, you can call yourself Jamaicans or Barbadians or whatever it is, you are Africans, and this is how they see you. Even when you go to applications, whatever, I've done many applications myself. When you go to applications, if you are applying in the United States, the blacks, okay, they don't distinguish between blacks, Africans, and African Americans. They just put blacks, Africans, black. That is it. Black, African American, African, they put you in the same category. So these people, they don't care about whether you are African American. They don't care about whether you are Jamaican or Haitian. You are black to them. You are black. And our brothers have to understand this. Our brothers in the diaspora have to really understand this. Clearly have to understand this. You have to understand this, that these people don't care about you. They don't care about us. So as long as you're black, they don't really care about you. And they care about themselves. Wherever they are, they don't distinguish that they are Canadians, they are Australians. They don't. They see themselves as one. So they are seeing Pan-Africanism as a threat. And I think there was a memorandum which was published. There was a memorandum which was published in which the United States looked at the coming together of Africans on the continent and Africans in the diaspora as a threat. Memorandum 36, could it be 36? It was published, I think, in 1971. Memoranda 36 or something like that, in which the United States mapped out clearly that the coming together of Africans in the diaspora, the African Americans, that time Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, all these guys were coming to the African continent and teaming up with Nkrumah, because Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali, both of them came to the continent. Dr. Martin Luther King also came to the continent. He was around during the celebration of independence when Ghana got its independence. Actually, Dr. King would go back to the United States and he was inspired by what happened in Ghana, and he would ramp up even the struggle. This was 1957. He would ramp up the struggle in the United States for the civil rights. And he would give a speech after coming from Ghana, the birth of a new nation. And that speech which Dr. King gave, the birth of a new nation, was inspired by the events of what he saw in Ghana. So there was coming together of Africans in the diaspora. and on the continent. And this, the United States saw it as a threat. Yeah, so, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, C&S. That document is called Memoranda 46. Okay, they saw this. You need to go out right there and read this document. Memoranda 46 is what shows this. So the behavior of imperialism basically does not change. It is the same. It's the same. These are representatives of imperialism. Blinken is basically a representative of imperialism. Imperialism does not change. It just changes the methods. So if they use the memorandas before, now they're going to use artificial intelligence. If they have been excessively, heavily using the FBI and using other tactics to put information in African schools and all the schools in the United States of the blacks, so that the blacks can hate themselves or whatever, they are using drugs and stuff like that in the United States and giving up guns, then right now they can change that tactic and use artificial intelligence. That is what they're going to use in the disinformation campaign. Okay, so whatever they don't like, they outlaw it. That has always been the way of the European. They outlaw it. If we don't like your gods, outlaw all of them. Outlaw your gods. And we want only European gods to dominate. Outlaw any African, system of governance. Outlaw any African system of organizing society. Outlaw it. Only the European system should dominate. And that has always been the European way. And of course, this comes with demonization. You have to first demonize, dehumanize somebody's system, whether it is the gods, whether it is his way of life, whether it is his way of organizing society. Outlaw it. And then you plant your own. And this is why we are where we are today. So this generation has so many tools today that it has the opportunity to fight back against this information, against imperialism and its tools, because our ancestors have already analyzed these tools for us. They have given us these tools and they have analyzed imperialism for us. They have given us these tools of analysis of imperialism. Nkrumah spent all his life analyzing imperialism. Huge books, 21 books and pamphlets, which he wrote. Nkrumah spent his life. So there's no excuse, we as Africans, why we cannot fight back. We have to, because what this shows basically is that they are losing. These guys are losing. They are losing against Russia. They are losing against China. They are losing everything. So they don't want this information to come out that they are losing. They are being defeated. The propaganda is being defeated. You saw what happened with Ethiopia, from 2020, that they wanted to attack Ethiopia and they wanted to use misinformation, the BBC. They wanted to use the BBC, to use all these Western propaganda to attack Ethiopia, to use the rebels in the northern part of the country to attack. But the people fought against it. The Ethiopians and the other Africans came out and rallied against Al Jazeera. They rallied against, because these Al Jazeeras also are used. They rallied against the BBC. If you look at the publications during that time, if you look at the campaign during that time, the West was defeated with its media propaganda. So we have the tools. We have the tools to defeat them. We have the tools to defeat them. So this generation has much more tools to defeat this campaign. So that is the truth. That is the truth about this situation. So we need to understand this clearly as Africans, that we have to put up a fight, and we cannot always lay down and say we will not fight. The US was defeated in Vietnam simply because the Vietnamese people would not give up. It's not because the Vietnamese had a lot of weapons. They had superior weapons than the United States. No. The Vietnamese, the Viet Congs, they did not have superior weapons to those of the United States. The United States had bombs and used to come and even spray agent, whatever it is, all these chemicals on the people, and the people would die. But these guys would not give up. They would just be coming. They would continue coming. They would continue to come. So the understanding that we are supposed to put up a fight, we as Africans should sink in. It's supposed to sink in our minds that imperialism cannot be defeated by us putting our heads down all the time, like folding our arms all the time. We have to put up a fight. Whether it's verbally, even physically, we have to understand that we have to put up a fight. That's the only way we are going to liberate this continent and give a befitting life to all Africans across the globe. Without that, we cannot give Africans on the continent and in the diaspora a befitting life or even respect. We cannot. No African will get respect if we don't have, if we don't put up a fight, if we don't bring our resources together as Africans, no African will get respect anywhere across the world. You saw recently during the Paris Olympics that Serena Williams, whether it was Venice, I think it was Serena, she went to Paris and she was discriminated because she's black, but she's a celebrity, she's an international celebrity. She was discriminated. Why? Because she's an African. And they don't give a damn whether she's married to a white person. They don't. So they discriminated against her. So this is what is going to come to us. If we say we're going to lay down our heads all the time, we have to learn to put our heads up as Africans. Anyway, let us continue to listen to Blinken and his lies and what he's
under the the internet intelligence diplomacy has become a hallmark of our administration. I've instructed U.S. diplomats around the world to share the evidence that we've gathered on RT's expanded capabilities and the ways it's being used to target individual countries and the information ecosystem that we share. Now, each government, of course, is going to decide how it responds to this threat. But we urge every ally, every partner, to start by treating RT's activities as they do other intelligence activities by Russia within their borders. Now, let me be very clear. The United States respects and champions freedom of expression, even when it comes to media outlets that wittingly spread government propaganda, and will continue to lead the world in defending and promoting media freedom. But we will not stand by as RT and other actors carry out covert activities in support of Russia's nefarious activities. And we'll continue to respond forcefully to Moscow's playbook of aggression and subversion, one that includes invading sovereign nations, fomenting coups, weaponizing corruption, carrying out assassinations, meddling in elections, and unjustly detaining foreign nationals. The great U.S. Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis once said, as is well known, sunlight is the best disinfectant. RT wants its new covert intelligence capabilities, like its longstanding propaganda and disinformation efforts, to remain hidden. Our most powerful antidote to Russia's lies is the truth. It's shining a bright light on what the Kremlin is trying to do under the cover of darkness. Taking action, together with our allies and partners, to address this threat to our democracies is an effective way of pushing back. And today, we're taking an important step in that direction. One final related note on a more uplifting subject. A little bit earlier today, I had the opportunity to sit down with Evan Gershkovich. First time I've had a chance to see him since he was freed. We were joined by one of his colleagues from the Wall Street Journal, which was such a tenacious champion, along with his family, in pressing for Evan's release. I know a number of you know Evan. Anyone who knows him can attest to this. He's incredibly warm. He's got a great sense of humor. But maybe the most striking part of spending time with Evan is simply how wonderful it feels to see him free, home, where he belongs. I also keep returning to the fact that Evan, on the form that Russia forced him to fill out before he was released, asked for an interview with Vladimir Putin, always on the job. We make a lot of great things in this country, but one of the greatest things we make is our journalists, their professionalism, your professionalism. The unshakable commitment to seeking the truth is a service not only to our people and our democracy, it's a service to the entire world. Evan's freedom is also a reminder of all Americans who are still held hostage or wrongfully detained. And as I said, when we first secured the release of Evan, of Paul, of Alsu, and others, for them and for their families, those who remain detained, there are tough days when they will question if they ever get their freedom back. My pledge to them is the same one that I made to Evan and to the dozens of other Americans whose release we've secured these last few years. We've not forgotten you, we will not forget you, and we will not rest until we get you home where you belong. Thanks very much.
Yeah, so there you have it. There you have it. So you have seen it. You have seen Blinken's lies. You have seen the attack on African media. Please support the channel. Kindly support the channel and share this video with other people. Share it with others. Share the platform with other people. You are 150 people on the platform. Kindly give us those likes, which are 150, and so that the platform can be are recommended by the algorithm to other people. You know that the African platforms are being suppressed by the algorithm on YouTube, as you are seeing, and the follow-up is banning them. They are banning them. So we as Africans need to put up a fight, to combat these lies that the West is spreading, and the colonization, of course, that is coming up. That they want to recolonize the African continent. This is basically what it means. If someone wants to tell you what to do with your life, basically is trying to say that they are trying to colonize you. They are trying to dictate to you what to do, what to say, what to listen to. This is colonization. This is basically colonization. It's the same thing which was done during slavery. And this mindset, this mentality by the West, by these whites, has not gone away. And they are white because that is what they are. We don't need even to apologize for saying that they are white. As you are seeing them, they control the systems of the world. Therefore, you need to support these platforms so that we can fight this struggle together. Thank you so much. And please share the platforms and also support the platform on PayPal and support us in any other way you can, super chat. You can support us through the super chats, support the platform. Thank you so much. My name is Kwame Gonza and the platform is called Connect Africa and Africa Reimagined. We will see you another time very soon. We'll catch up with you. Thank you so much and respect.